Parashat Vaera is a continuation of Parashat Shemot. We're beginning to see the first signs of the Geulah, the redemption. And we left off with a question at the end of Parashat Shemot that Moshe asked HaKadosh Baruch Hu, after you send me on this important mission, Lama re'ot al-am hazeh, why are things deteriorating? Why are things beginning to be worse? It should be the other way around. It should be clear to everyone that you are redeeming, but it's not clear. You promised, you said so. In the meantime, things are more difficult. They're working harder. They have to fetch their own hay to make the bricks. Right? Life is becoming more difficult for them. So where's the Geulah? So I began to explain that Hashem says the fact that things are beginning to be worse is a signal in itself. It's a sign that I'm bringing about the Geulah. So that in itself is a signal. That means something. And as I mentioned also, that Le'atid Lavo, right before Mashiach comes, the gezirot, the terrible decrees that the world will witness, but especially the Jewish people, will be like galei hayam, will be like waves. And if one sees terrible things happening one after another, with very few intervals between them, it means that something is imminent. In this case, of course, the Geulah is coming very soon. Nevertheless, we still have to understand what's the idea of intensifying it. Okay, it's a signal, it's a sign, fine, that the Geulah is coming, but what is the purpose of intensifying, of making life more difficult? What do we gain from this? In the very beginning of Parashat Vaera, Hashem reveals to Moshe part of the answer, Vaydaber Elohim Moshe Vayomer Elav Ani Hashem. There's something called Elohim, there's something called Hashem, Yud Kei Vav Kei. Hashem has various names, different attributes that describe Hashem's activities, perhaps, the way he functions in this world, in this universe, in different ways. Hashem is Midat HaRachamim, the attribute of mercy. Elohim is Midat HaDin, the attribute of justice. Sometimes din has to be done. Sometimes HaKadosh Baruch Hu does things berachamim, not according to the din. According to the din, they would be guilty, but because sheyesh Midat HaRachamim, because we have this attribute called Rachamim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is merciful, and he either overlooks or he postpones and delays any punishment, or he decreases the punishment, and so forth. So Hashem is telling Moshe right now, he's introducing him to these ideas, that I'm not always doing things the same way. Don't think I'm predictable, because there's no such thing. I have a certain plan and a cheshbon that I cannot always share with mankind, and not everybody can figure out what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. Just know that there are several systems in place, basically Midat HaDin and Midat HaRachamim. And when things are done through Midat HaDin, they're done one way, and when they're done through Midat HaRachamim, they appear to be different. The difference between the two of them is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu sometimes exacts from mankind by Midat HaDin, because he promised that he will reward those who fulfill the mitzvot, and he will unfortunately pay those who commit sins as well by Yisurim. In other words, there has to be scales of justice, and sometimes things are carried out in this world, and sometimes things are delayed to the future world. So if HaKadosh Baruch Hu exacts of someone some punishment, obviously it's because HaKadosh Baruch Hu decided at this time it's going to be Midat HaDin. If he delays it for whatever reason, even to Olam Haba, and nothing happens to the individual in this world, even though he deserves it, it could be because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is acting on Midat HaRachamim. So Hashem is telling him, if you see something difficult, something which appears to be terrible, like people dying, people hurt, people suffering, you should know that has something to do with Midat HaDin. It doesn't just happen for no reason. And when you see the Geulah, you will see Nisim v'Niflaot. That will be Midat HaRachamim to an extent. But this is just perhaps rudimentary, you can call it. It doesn't really fully explain why HaKadosh Baruch Hu nonetheless intensifies the suffering right before the Geulah. All along it was hard enough, and now it becomes more difficult. What for? And the reason for that is as follows. The Sefer Kabbalah is written that right before Mashiach comes, there will be an intensification of the Yisurim, because there may no longer be time to bring everybody who requires Gilgul back in the Gilgul. Gilgul is the reincarnation. The reincarnation is a form of tikkun for the neshama, for atoning for whatever it did in the previous life. If there's no time for that, if there's no time to bring people back, because the Geulah is about to come, how does Hashem atone for those sins?
People have to be clean, right? There's no more Gehenom, there's no more Gilgul. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu brings about all sorts of suffering ba'olam hazeh, in one's lifetime. So right before the Geulah, there will be a lot of suffering, there will be a lot of wars, there will be, unfortunately, a lot of cases where people will lose their lives in one way or another, whether at war or some other way, by terrorism. And there will be many, many numbers of people who will suffer through this. Why? Because Hashem has to finish. He has to clean everybody. But all the sins have to be atoned for. Otherwise, the zechuyot may be lacking. There may not be enough zechuyot to redeem the Jewish nation. Hashem promised that He's going to redeem it. Mashal lema davar domeh. What does this compare to? To a man, an older man, who heard about this widow, who's a very nice woman, and that she has a good business, and she has good midot, good nature, good character, and he wanted to get married to her, this widow. But there was one problem. She had many debts. She owed people a lot of money. If you're in business, it could happen. So he said, you know what? You want to marry me? I want to marry you? Okay, but I don't want to marry you with debts. I want you to start with a clean record. So you know what? Let's set a date, 6 months from now. Hopefully, by the end of these 6 months, you will have paid your bills, right? So we can get married. Time goes by, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. He still hears that she's not paying her bills. What does she do? Every creditor that comes, she gives another excuse. This one, she tells him the check is in the mail. That one, she pushes off, she has no money. This one, she says, I don't even owe you. Whatever. She pushes off, she makes excuses, and she's basically pushing everybody off. I'm sure you're familiar with this kind of an attitude, right? You've come across people like that. So she was basically taking her time, she was no rush, she didn't want to pay, whatever her reasons was, she wasn't paying her bills, her debts. So this man, who happens to be a rich man too, decides, you know what? I want to marry her, right? I want to settle down. If I have to wait, who knows how long it will take. He decides on a plan, he calls all her debtors, all the creditors, right, together, and he says, you know what, you all have to gang up together at once, go to her house unexpectedly, where she doesn't expect you, but all together, and demand payment on the spot. When she will see all of you together, there will be so much pressure, she'll have to pay off. That's exactly what happened. In the end, they all came, they all ganged up, and she had no choice. They were all there in her house. She paid them all off. Later on, she found out that it was her future husband, her fiancé, who did this. So she was very upset. You know how women can get. Right? So she said, what kind of a husband are you? What kind of a husband are you that does something like this to his future wife? Why would I want to marry somebody like you? Terrible. How dare you do something like this? So he says, you don't understand. I did this for our own good. It was for your good, for your benefit. If I want to marry you, and it would be good for you to get married too, right? It's good for the both of us. If I would wait for you to pay your debts on your own, who knows how long it will take? You never get married. So my kavanah, my intention was for the well-being of our well-being, for your benefit, and that is why I came up with this plan. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, if I have to wait, right, for Am Yisrael to pay their debts, I want to get married to them. I want to get engaged with you. The chesed, the rachamim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to get back together with us. If I wait till Am Yisrael will do teshuvah till it pays all its debts, who knows how long it will take? HaKadosh Baruch Hu already wants to bring the Geulah. The Geulah is the Hatunah. Who says, you know what? I'll gang them all up together at the same time. All the creditors will come after you. So all the Yitzurim, all the Milchamot, all the wars, they all come one after another to clean up. There's no more time left. There's no more time left. That is the idea over here. There's Midat Hadin going on over here. And Allah was telling Moshe, this is part of the Geulah. It's a signal. But why is it a signal? It's a signal that things have to be cleaned up. All the debts have to be paid. That is why things are intensifying. That was that point. The next point in Parashat Vaera is the various languages of Geulah. We see והוצאתי אתכם מתחת לבלות מצרים והצלתי אתכם מעבודתה וגאלתי אתכם מזרוע נטויה ולקחתי אתכם לעם והייתי לכם אלוקים, right? Various leshonot of Geulah, various languages or expressions of redemption. To save, to take you out, to save you, to redeem you, to take you. Right? What do they represent? They represent the various stages of Geulah. We have Arba Kosot. Yeah, I'll talk about that next. We have Arba Kosot on the Seder, Keneged the Arba Leshonot Shel Geulah, the various stages that happen one at a time. The Geulah doesn't happen quickly, as the Navi says, The future Geulah will happen very slowly. Ki lo b'chipazot tetzeu. You will not come out just like that, unless we would have zechuyot. It will be a slow process, and it will happen in stages. So in the same way in Egypt happened, little by little. What does it mean, little by little? Did you go to Eretz Yisrael right away? No. That is where you have a fifth language called Veheveti. Veheveti is left by itself. Why? Because the generation that left Egypt did not make it.
Oh.
Right? Who made it? Yeshua and Caleb and Yefuneh. They were the only ones. Not even Moshe and Aaron, imagine, came to Eretz Yisrael. So Veheveti stands out by itself. So the Orach Chaim HaKadosh says, why does it stand out by itself? Because Veheveti is conditioned on the phrase, on the pasuk that was said before. What's the pasuk right before Veheveti? V'ida'atem ki ani Hashem Elokechem. If you know Hashem, you fulfill the Torah mitzvot, then you will be zocheh to enter the land and to have the land, to keep it, not to be thrown out again, Khalilah. So the Achizah, our holding on to Eretz Yisrael depends directly on our fulfillment of the Torah mitzvot. The whole idea of why we have Eretz Yisrael is not just to have a country. Some Jews would have been happy with Uganda or with the Pampas of Argentina. Yeah, it's discussed. It's written, it's documented. They offered that. They want. We're not. All we want is a piece of land. We don't want to be in a ghetto in Poland. No connection to Eretz Yisrael whatsoever. No connection. Hashem says you do have a connection, but the connection is through the Torah. If there's no Torah, then of course everybody will go after you. You robbed our lands. You took it. You don't belong to. What are you doing here? If we would be fulfilling the Torah mitzvot, nobody would bother us. Everybody would admit this is this land belongs to the Jewish people. When everybody else is in denial, right? And when we have trouble, that means that something is wrong. So these leshonot of Geulah represent the various stages of the Geulah. In the same way they represented the various stages back then, they also represent the stages in the future Geulah. What is Ve'otzeti, the future Geulah? Ve'otzeti, the future Geulah, would represent at the point in the diaspora which we are already past, where the ol of the Galut begins to disappear, the burden. We're no longer, most countries in the world, the Jews are no longer second-class citizens, right? Have to pay extra taxes, can't get jobs, most places. The ol of the Galut, right? The Ve'otzeti, we're coming out, that is already coming out. Ve'itzalti, I guess, would be another stage where the Jewish people are no longer dependent. To an extent, we still have some dependency on other countries in the world, oil, etc. This is just an example. It doesn't mean that these words represent these stages, but just an example. Ve'ga'alti would be the stage of the Geulah where there will be nekama. Kadosh Baruch Hu will take nekama. Part of the Geulah is what happened in Mitzrayim was makot, or totum oftim, miracles, plagues, punishing the nations. That will happen too. That is already beginning to happen now. For what they did, HaKadosh Baruch Hu has a long heshbon, a long account, a long reckoning with the nations for all that they did. He doesn't forget. And there's a long list in every country in the world almost, every generation. You know how terrible things happen to the Jewish people. Otherwise, we would have been more than the Chinese. We're around longer than they are. We would have been more than 1 billion. Why not? We multiply a lot more than they do, right? But because of the persecution, because of some assimilation too, and because the 10 tribes are not with us at this time, because of all these factors, we're only about 15 million, maybe 16 million, maybe 17 at the most. And what happened to everybody, right? So the Ga'altis and the Kamat will go in for all of the persecution that they caused us, that they brought upon us. Then there's the Lakachti, which involves the stage of Teshuvah, which we're seeing bits and pieces of. The Lakachti, who is bringing us back, He's embracing us. That is the stage of Teshuvah, that Am Yisrael returns to its root. Then of course the Veti, when everybody joins kibbutz, the whole kibbutz Galiot is in Eretz Israel, and the Bet HaMikdash is rebuilt. So the rabbis tell us in the Midrash, therefore, Ki Geulat Mitzrayim Kach Geulat Idai. If you want to have an idea of what the future redemption will look like, just take a look at the details, at the stories, at how it came about, Geulat Mitzrayim, and you will have an idea of how Geulat Idai will come about. The only thing that I explained is that there's one difference. It will be backwards. Why backwards? In Geulat Mitzrayim, there was first Makot. The Jews were in Mitzrayim. Then they were Makot. Then they left. Then they entered the land. Here, we will already be in Eretz Israel. We would have already arrived. Then there will be the Makot, right? And then there will be the Geulah. In other words, the Geulah of bringing us out from the rest of the countries of the world. In other words, it will be slightly different, the order of things. But it will be very, very similar. Not only will it be similar, it will involve many, many ototim muftim. The ototim muftim actually will be even greater in number and intensity, the miracles that were in Mitzrayim.
From Shemayim.
And many of course, from Shemayim. Yeah. So this is an extremely exciting time to be living in, to be able to see this, but unfortunately, as I said before, it happens in stages, so we can't see the whole thing at once. We have the advantage of looking back at the Holocaust. At least I was born after it. My father still remembers it. He was a boy, but my generation is able to look back and hopefully the worst is behind us. But who knows? Maybe not. Right? We've had some relative, some peace. Not everywhere, not in every country in the world. Israel still suffering, has no peace. But that is for another reason. But we're able to see things are happening. Look what's happening in Argentina. All the Jews are moving. Yeah.
France.
Yeah, France, eventually the United States. So we're seeing everything unfold in front of our eyes. Yeah, an increase of anti-Semitism. Tremendous increase. Yeah, tremendous, yeah. Yeah, so anyway, so we're witnessing it right now. There's no doubt that this is the generation. The question is it going to be at the end? Is it going to be tomorrow? Right? That's, how much more suffering there will be. But that this is a time, it's obvious because just look at all the changes that are happening that did not occur 100 years ago. That is the sign. 50s. Right, exactly. Okay, next point in Parashat Vaera, we begin to see that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has an interesting agenda with Paro. He intends to make life hard for Paro. Paro would have given up. Paro would have given up, okay, I give up, go. He's stubborn. Why? He's stubborn not because he's necessarily stubborn by nature. Hashem says, Ani machbid et libo. I will harden his heart. Since when does Hashem harden somebody's heart? Doesn't everybody have free will to be a tzaddik or rasha? We believe in that. Everybody chooses by himself what he wants to do, what he wants to do. Hashem says, no, don't worry. Ani machbid et libo. He won't let you out, even if he wants to. Why? What's the purpose of Achbadat lef Paro, to harden his heart? So the basic explanation is as follows. What Hashem means that I will harden his heart doesn't mean I necessarily will take away his free will. No, not necessarily. It could also mean the simple Peshat. The simple Peshat is that how would Paro have given in if he was impressed? Impressed. When a person is impressed, he starts to fear. Oh, there's a great force out there. Right? He becomes impressed. What does Hashem do? I'm going to take away that impression. And I'm going to put it into his head. Maybe it's just a coincidence. Maybe it's nature. How do I know that it's for sure that it's a God? Right? I'm going to take away that impression. In other words, I won't let him become so impressed. Initially he will become impressed, but I'll let it cool down. And let it cool down. And by letting it cool down, he eventually reneges on his promises to let the people out. And he says, no, I decided not to. But you just saw, right? Just look what happened to Saddam Hussein in Iraq in the Gulf War. Right? Also, Hashem echbid people. Okay, I'm sure they will not conquer Iraq. They'll go after, they'll destroy a few missiles, then they'll leave. And the way he was right. If that is what he predicted, if that is what his mindset, after 100 days they left. And now they regret it, of course. Right? Nevertheless, Hashem put it, for whatever reason, put it into his mind to refuse, to be stubborn. But it wasn't just normal stubbornness, because it was against any logic, any reason to resist so much pressure. Right? But obviously Hashem has his own fishbowl. So sometimes HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if he wants to bring about, like in this case, or totem of tremendous miracles, right, and punishments for the Egyptians, he doesn't allow them to become impressed, so they should suffer. Hashem wants them to suffer. So the punishment should be stronger, right? Another explanation is that in the very beginning, Paro was himself stubborn. He was refusing sirev on his own after several makot. Hashem said, now because you refuse, now I won't even let you submit. In other words, give up. That happens according to the Kabbalah. There is a point of no return. I don't want to call it no return because everybody can return, but it's like a point of no return. When a person is so bad that HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I'm not going to give you the chance to do teshuvah. And what does that mean? Everybody has the chance to do teshuvah, no matter how bad he is, no matter what he did in the world. So what does it mean that Hashem doesn't give him a chance? He doesn't wake him up. He doesn't send any signs. Every neshama that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is worried about it, concerned about him, he from time to time sends him a sign. Whether it's in a dream, whether it's while he's awake through his business, through some matter, he sends him a little sign. Some people pick up the sign, they pick up on it, they're sensitive. Something is wrong, obviously Hashem is not happy with me. Or, after a while, somebody tells them, you better do something. Either way, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if he wants to punish someone, because that person is very, very bad. He doesn't send them any signs. And that is his greatest punishment. In other words, he's mastir tatzmo. It's like he says, you know what? I will make believe I don't exist for him. And therefore he will never think of doing teshuvah. And that is why does he do that? Because of the tremendous amount of avanot that the person already did. But already on his own, there's so much, he was so bad that Hashem says, you know what? Now I'm going to strengthen his heart. I will, in other words, not allow him to see anything. And I will do it intentionally because that is what deserves. That is what he deserves, the punishment of not doing teshuvah, of not being able to see anything whatsoever. And that is a tremendous punishment. When Hashem says, astir, what does that mean? In other words, that it would not be too obvious to many people that he exists, Hashem. The Shekhinah is like removed. And that is what happens during the tragedy like the Holocaust. It looks like the enemy is winning, and the Jew, one of the enemy can chase 1,000 of us. How could that be? Everybody asks, why didn't they all gang up on this one Nazi and kill him? Yeah. Why did they go like sheep, like herd to slaughter, they say, right? Everybody uses this. Why? Because if you read the Torah, it says, whenever you see this phenomenon, that one of the enemy can lead 1,000 of us, it's not because Hashem, is not with us, Halila, right? It is because, part of it is because Hashem has instilled in us this fear, this humbleness, this lack of courage, which is part of the punishment, that we won't even think of going after this one, not to holding a gun. What could happen? So he shoots a few, but the rest can escape. They don't even think of it. That is a tremendous punishment. What is the other way around? When we have beracha, one of us can chase away 10,000 of them. That happened in the 6-day war. They all ran away. They left their shoes. Right, Isaac? Remember? How? The beracha, miracles, exactly the opposite way. All right, next point. We spoke a little bit about this last week, that Kadosh Baruch Hu does miracles in Egypt. Many otot muftim, to impress upon who? To impress upon the hartumim, to impress upon the magicians, because they know better than anybody else that this is magic. As they themselves admitted in Makat Kinim, Etzba Elokim. This is the finger of God. This is not Maaseh Kishuv. This is not Maaseh Shadid. This is not done by demons. This is not done by anything else. This is done by Hashem. What is happening over here? The Rambam brings down that the Jewish people were not convinced Sheyesh Borei Olam, that there's a creator, that Hashem exists, that Hashem is really taking them out of Egypt because of all the magic. Moshe did not convince them, did not prove to them through his otot, through his signs that he did with the mateh. What did it? They heard themselves. 600,000 men over the age of 20 heard firsthand, they were witnesses firsthand, that Hashem spoke to them, and that is why they said Naaseh v'nishma. This is the only nation that had this kind of an experience. We would not have accepted somebody telling us a story. You know what? An angel spoke to me. All the religions of the world, all the cults of the world, the way they developed is one person begins it. How do you know he's telling you this truth? Jewish experience is so different. It's that everyone over the age of 20, the men, witnessed it, plus the many children, and this is how they were able to convince future generations. Otherwise, why should we believe our father? Because he heard it from his father. It couldn't have started something like this with so many mitzvot demanding and saying we saw it. How could the first generation say we saw it unless they did see it? Right? They saw it. Obviously they saw it. Otherwise this stubborn nation would never have existed. So what's the purpose of the Ototom of King? What do you need the magic for? The magic, nevertheless, all the Ototom of King, the miracles that happened in Egypt, does have an effect on the Jews as well as the Egyptians. It is not meant to prove. It is meant to inspire. It is meant to instill fear. Right? I'm not sure if I explained to you, but I've said it in the past. As the Pasuk says, God does certain things in the world only for the sole purpose of instilling fear in people. Yeah. The example is lightning. Lightning has an effect of straightening out a person's heart if it's a little crooked. Puts in fear. This is necessary to additionally inspire the people to not necessarily prove anything, because it doesn't prove. Because a miracle can be witchcraft. People can do all sorts of incredible things with witchcraft. So if you see something incredible, if somebody tells you, you know what, I'm going to split the Pacific Ocean, believe in me. we will not believe in him, even if he splits the Pacific Ocean. Because it can be done with witchcraft. You can do different kinds of things. So witchcraft doesn't prove anything, right? Which is in Koach HaTumah. Somebody, I had a lot of people tell, Christians speak to me, why don't you do this, and why don't you do that, and why don't you believe in him, and why don't you do that? I said, the Torah that we have has not changed. And the only way it could ever change, is if we had the exact same thing happening, that Hashem would speak to us from heaven in front of the entire Jewish nation. Why should I believe one man that came here just because he did a few little tricks, he walked on water, etc.? That can be done with Kishuv. Don't you realize this can be done with Kishuv? An eating seed. Yeah, exactly. So it's all a bunch of lies. It all came from one person. So all these miracles are not intended to prove, but they can reinforce. They can inspire. But for the Egyptians, who all they believed in was in Koach HaKishuv, for them it was necessary to show, like Yitro later on says, there's no God only but him. En od milvado. There's no one else. Higadol Hashem mikol ha'elokim. Right? What do you mean mikol? There's more? No, I try them all out. Just like Hindus. The Hindus believe in millions of gods. Why? Because they believe there's this power, there's this power, there's the sun, they all have powers. Like the original Greek mythology, sure. Hashem is proving to the Egyptians, who are in a sense atheists, there is a greater koach that is not equivalent or is not a par with these kochot that you're thinking about. Etzba Elokim Hi. But for the Jews, the miracles were also important to further inspire, to instill awe in them, and further strengthen their emunah, but not to prove it. So that was the purpose of the total muftim. It was intended for the Jews and also intended for Egyptians, but for different reasons. Okay, the next point in Parashat Vaera is that there are many makot, which we'll talk about each one separately, but before we talk about the various makot, the Torah attributes great importance to the whole Yetziat Mitzrayim. We do a lot of things Zecher Yetziat Mitzrayim. The whole Chag HaPesach is Zecher Yetziat. In Kriyat Shema we say Zecher Yetziat. Everything, it's important to remember Yetziat Mitzrayim. So let me ask you, how do we know Yetziat Mitzrayim occurred? So to us it's simple, because we have all these things that we do to celebrate and to commemorate something that happened, and we don't just do it for no reason. We did it, our forefathers did it. That is what remained with us. Nevertheless, there are people who are not Jews who would want to have proof that something like that happened. What would you offer them? For us, we have proof for ourselves that is convincing them. But if somebody who's not Jewish wanted to have proof, this is a major event in the world. This is what brought about the Jewish people. The Jewish nation came out from this. We went out to receive the Torah. How do we convince them that all this is? Besides the regular things that we do, is there any other way, scientific proof, as they would say? How do we know the Holocaust occurred? Anybody know?
People.
What?
People are
maybe they're lying. Maybe they're lying.
Not one. There are too many survivors.
Okay, so for many of us, that's sufficient proof. And you're right. You know what? If you go to court, all you need is two witnesses, and they're believed, right? Two witnesses are believed, and you have hundreds of thousands of witnesses, right? Okay. But what if somebody is a die-hard atheist, atheist doesn't work here, but doesn't believe the Jews?
Yeah.
What would you tell them? I have a better idea. Why don't we ask the Germans themselves to bring their own records? You know what the Germans did? They filmed themselves what they did in many places. They made movies. They wrote it down. They described everything. They experimented. It's all documented by them. Yeah. Well, guess what? The Egyptians did the same thing.
Oh yeah.
The Egyptians documented, believe it or not, that there was 10 makot. The 10 makot are documented in hieroglyphics, and there's a papyrus. You know what a papyrus is?
Yeah, the paper.
That paper they used to write on?
From trees.
From plants, yeah. In a museum in Holland. Yeah. Papyrus, papyrus, it's all the same. There is a piece of papyrus there that documents this Egyptian, what appears to be like an Egyptian journalist at the time, saying, all of a sudden, the locusts eating all our food, there's darkness, people are wailing, people are dying, right? There's all sorts of plagues, and at the very end it says, and there is a big flame going with the enemy of the land. Talking about the Anan and the Ish that followed In other words, a lot of what he's saying our idol is full of blood, meaning the Yaor.
Yeah.
A lot of what he describes fits exactly what is happening. So anyway, there's a lot of evidence that of what is happening. The reason I mention this over here is because the Torah usually does not get into detail about everything. But that is what we have in the Midrash. And the Midrash supplements or fills in all the details and all the stories that the Torah, being an abridged book, does not include. Does not include all the very details. But there are many, many stories and many things that happen in Egypt that have been documented by the Egyptians in the same way that Babel and Paras, all these empires that existed, documented themselves. We know Nebuchadnezzar existed. He documented his own thing. We know that he destroyed the Bet HaMikdash. He talks about coming and conquering Yerushalayim. He wrote about it. So we know all these things. So Yetziat Mitzrayim being a very important event to the world and to the Jewish nation, it had to be that HaKadosh Baruch Hu would have wanted that it should not only have a lasting effect on us, but the world should know that this happened. Just like the world, at all times, many cultures knew that there was a Mabul, Noah. Others knew about it. There was such a thing. They had this tradition. In the same way, people knew. How did people know that there was Yetziat Mitzrayim? Because the Midrash says by Kriyat Yamsu, which we'll speak about in Parashat Shalach, all the waters in the world split.
Yeah.
Not just Yamsu. Waters everywhere split. In other words, the water was splitting. That miracle occurred almost everywhere. People were aware when there was Matan Torah. The world was aware that this was happening. But people, of course, humans scattered all over the world, and there wasn't a continuous tradition, right, from father to son, like by us, the importance of transmitting the tradition. That is why people did not write or forgot about it. But at one time people knew. So this Geulah of Mitzrayim, Kadosh Baruch Hu, with the many Otot and Moftim, is making an impression worldwide. And the same will be true in this coming Geulah. It will be worldwide. Today, it will be heard everywhere because we also have TV, we also have internet, we also have all sorts of means of communication where everybody will find out about it immediately. So it will be, of course, very different. But even during the time of Geulat Mitzrayim and Kabbalat Torah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu did what he did in such a fantastic way. For what reason? To leave that impression upon all mankind. Upon all mankind. And if archaeologists and historians were really honest, they would dig and look, they will find enough evidence. But they want to deny it for their own political reasons. Alright, 2 more points. Let's talk about the Makot. The Dam. What's the purpose of Dam? Why did Hashem bring Dam?
Because they should keep it.
Why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu bring Dam? Blood?
Because they used to worship now.
No. They killed the little boys.
No. Well, you could say that too, because they killed the little boys. But the basic explanation brought down, the Dam was where? In the Nile. The Nile. Yeah. What was the Nile? Their God.
Their God, yeah.
So HaKadosh Baruch Hu is tearing apart their God. Here, you have so much trust and belief in this God, you're turning into blood. Where's your God? Okay, that's one reason. But you could say what you said too.
Also, no?
Yeah, for various reasons. What did I say last week? That every Makat that Hashem brings down is Midah Keneged Midah. So there is obviously an eye for an eye over here, and other reasons as well. Sfardea, one of the explanations brought down, why frogs? Because many of the jobs that the Jews were given were very low jobs, very, just to make them work harder, for no reason whatsoever. Go gather us insects and reptiles. Go collect them for us, for whatever reason. Many times there was no reason. It was just to make them work hard. You make them therefore work hard and not necessarily to bring you all sorts of insects. I'm going to bring you frogs. Kinim, what was the purpose of lice? They made them sweep the dust. There's a lot of dust in Egypt.
Up to now.
Close to the Sahara, so there's a lot of dust. Anyway,
Still dust.
Still dust, yeah. Made them sweep, the Midrash says. Sweep, that brought about lice on people who were involved, became infested. Midah Keneged Midah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought lice on those who made them work with this cleaning. Arov, which is the 4th Makkah, which meant a multitude or a mixture of animals, is because they made them also fetch animals, whether it was for hunting or it was for other reasons. Hashem brought the animals on them. Dever is the plague where their animals died because of that they made them work with the animals, hard labor with animals. So their animals died. Shachin, what are shachin? Boils. They made them work with hot and cold or on extreme temperatures. So they suffered also extreme temperatures, boils on their own skin. They felt it what it means, what it feels like. Barad is the hail that destroyed the food in the pardesim, in the orchards, because they made them work hard in their orchards. So Hashem destroyed the orchards. Arbed, the locusts, to destroy whatever's left over in the fields, because they made them work hard in the fields. Choshech is unique. Choshech was a very special makah. Anybody know what was darkness for?
To cover the dead Jews.
So the Midrash brings down is because many Reshaim, amongst the Jews, did not want to leave Egypt, did not deserve to leave Egypt. Those who did not want to kill them in broad daylight. So the Jews did not say, you see, he's not only going after us, he's going after them too. So there was a plague of darkness where they cannot see the Jewish people burying their own dead, the Reshaim. That is one explanation. Obviously, during the Choshech, the Jews took advantage. For them, it was daylight to find, what their neighbors had and where they kept it.
The treasures.
Yeah. And obviously, you could also say that because they brought darkness on the Jews barely slept. Yeah. They made them work so hard, brought darkness on them too. And last, Makat Bechorot. So the simple Peshat is brought down as Beni Bechori Israel. We are his firstborn. He tortured us, made us work so hard. Hashem is going after their firstborn. But it's also because of the throwing the children into the Nile. That brought about the death of their children, especially the firstborn, which is the most important one, right?
And he was one of them.
Yeah.
He was a Bechor.
Yeah. But Hashem wanted Paro to stay alive to see all of this happen. Yeah. Okay, and the last point, obviously we don't have time to go into the next Parasha, but eventually we'll catch up. Last point is what Hashem tells Moshe Rabbeinu, tell Paro, Shalach, he should send my nation. There's an emphasis that Hashem is telling Moshe, Paro has to release them, has to let them go. What's the emphasis over here? The emphasis is that Hashem is not telling Moshe to tell Paro, make life easier for them. Don't make them work so hard, give them a day off. Make it easy. No, Hashem wants complete freedom for the Jewish people. What is the idea behind this? Why is Hashem emphasizing this? True Geulah, by the way, means that you are completely released. You are free to do whatever you want. You are free to leave to another country if you wish. You're no longer bound by anything, right? It doesn't mean that you can kill people or steal from people, right? But it means that you're no longer subjected to whatever you were subjected up until now. That is true Geulah. Some people, however, might claim that Geulah to them would mean I don't have to pay income tax anymore. Right? That's Geulah to me. I don't have to wake up the next morning to go to work. That's Geulah. True Geulah means being completely released from bondage, being a free man, what we call Herut, Ben Chorim. Why is it so important to note that Hashem tells Moshe that is what Paro has to do, is a complete release, because of what the Hatam Sofer said. The Hatam Sofer brings down the story about the King of Austria. The King of Austria at some point made a decree that from now on the Jews have equal rights to the non. Everybody was happy and celebrations rang out. Can you imagine? It was a tremendous thing back then.
Sure.
Equal rights, it means equal opportunities. You can
live anywhere you want.
You can go to college if you want. The Jews couldn't do that.
To business.
Right?
Yeah.
So the Hatam Sofer was the only one at the time when this happened. Maybe there were others too, who began to cry. Hatam Sofer, why are you crying? Everybody's celebrating. This is tremendous good news. He says, no, this is bad news. Bad news. He says, to the king who threw his advisor into prison. This advisor was always a good friend, an advisor, very close to the king, but the king found out that this guy was cheating, and he threw him into jail. Anyway, throws him into jail. The guy feels bad, even though he was so close to the king, he still did something terrible, and he understands that his punishment is to spend time in jail. But what does a person think when he's in jail? Sooner or later I'm going to go out, right? I get 5 years, I get 10 years, or whatever. That is, you still have hope. After a couple of weeks or months, the king, this advisor hears noise. There's a whole bunch of handymen coming to his cell with hammers and other tools. What are you doing here? We're coming to make your window bigger, so you should have fresh air. The king really likes you, and he really is concerned for your well-being. He wants to make your quarters as comfortable as possible. He begins to cry. Why? Because so long as these guys didn't come around, he still had hope that he would be here short time, maybe a couple more weeks, or months. Now that the guys are coming here to make my quarters comfortable, that means the king's plans are for me to stay here for a long, long time. So the Hatam Sofer says, when Am Yisrael is suffering, when things are becoming bad, when there are more and more gezerot coming on the Jewish people, those are good signs that Geulah is imminent. If the king of Ashur decides to make life easier for us, oy va'voy lanu, it means that the Geulah is still rechoka. It means that we still have many, many years in this prison, in this cage, in this galut.
Yeah.
It means that Hashem does not want to bring us out. Because it's not supposed to be like that. Hashem does not want us to remain in the galut. He does not want us to forget about Eretz Yisrael, about the Geulah. So He will not make things too comfortable for us. If He makes things comfortable, that means we're still far away from the Geulah. And back then, it was true. It was still 150 years from the Geulah. Today, when we see things are becoming so terrible and so difficult with World War I and World War II and with all the Israeli wars, now we know.
Maybe another war too.
Now we know that the Mashiach is
India and
coming.
Pakistan.
Things are not comfortable anymore. People don't have a job anymore. The economy is in shambles. Believe it or not, and it's hard to say, but it's the truth. That's good news. I would be very worried if I only saw good news in the newspaper. I would be very worried that the Geulah is still a little while coming. I wish everybody good news. But the fact that we see all this terrible news, that is the biggest siman that the Geulah is coming.